What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Master Crafted. It is a great day. It is Dataslate Day, and of course, we're all just so happy with what GW did, right? We love the changes. They didn't miss at all. They never do, right? The Lords above are just so good at their jobs, right? We got John, Phil. You guys agree with me, like 100%, right? John, let's start with you, man. You love the changes,
dude. Well, first and foremost, I love Dataslate Day. It's like Christmas every 3 months. I look forward to it. I never sleep the night before. I'm always a little nervous. This is true. Real story. I slept like shit last night. Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling great about the Dataslate. I don't know about you guys.
You know, I didn't get any Twin Lance under my tree for Dataslate Day, so I'm not as stoked as you are. You know, I didn't get a 160 point unit for no reason at all. So, you know, I'm not as happy in that regard. But, you know, it could be worse. I didn't love it, but it could be worse. Phil, what about you, buddy?
I thought it was the most tame GW change I've seen in a minute. There's a lot of times, especially when you have oppressive things in the meta, GW tends to like really hammer those home. I think back to all the factions that I've run that have been a little broken at times, right? GSC, they've hammered home. Death Guard, they hit pretty hard. The, Custodes in the past when we had our bike spam and all that, bullshit. They go after those units pretty heavily. This is probably the most reserved I've seen GW. So I think there's a benefit there. But there is a downside to it as well when it's like you expect these big changes that are going to shake up the meta in like a very, very substantial way. I would say we didn't see that. We didn't see something that like drastically changes the meta, but we did see the top get closer to the middle of the pack and the bottom get slightly raised up due to a combination of the top getting knocked down and then a couple very, very incremental changes across the board.
Yeah, and a lot of factions just completely getting ignored, regardless of where they may have been. Just like, nope, y'all will be fine. 3 more months of where you're at. It's not a big deal. Yeah, so we're gonna keep on doing our tier list as usual, same as we always do after a Dataslate drops. So we will go ahead, instead of running you through all the little changes, we're gonna give you our opinions on where we think they are going to land in terms of the tier list and how they are ranked. At the top, we have Mastercrafted, right? The S tier, the best you can be. Below that, we have Blessed by the Dark Gods. You know, took a little pact to be good, but you might not be the best. And then you got Touched by a Tech Priest. Who doesn't want to be in that nice, consistent B tier, right? Big Mech Gubbins, Hive World Scrap. And then last but not least, in the league of their own, as always, there's Imperial Agents, because they just are not real. They can't hurt you and they can't help you because they're all there by themselves. So yeah, that one's a giveaway. We'll go ahead and just start alphabetically though. Yeah, what do we got first, Phil?
Yeah, so we're going to start off with Sisters. They're a faction that didn't see any significant changes over the data slate. So their main changes are going to be what the meta has affected around them. So as we've said before, we don't like doing these tier breakdowns by saying this is going to be the best army, this is going to be the worst army. What we are going to say is the highest probability that you are going to be able to go X and 1 or undefeated at a GT. So what is the highest probability to win at GTs? Because if at the end of the day, like, John, myself, Lane, we all agree that right now the meta is so healthy. If you are a competent player and you are, a subject matter expert in that faction, we genuinely believe you can go win a GT with any faction that isn't named Imperial Agents. There's only one person that I could trust to win a GT with Imperial Agents. His name is Patrick Love, and I know he's a dedicated individual and he's a fantastic player, but if he can't do it, I think a lot of people would agree that that is the one faction that falls outside the realm of capable. But Sisters, yeah, they just got affected by the meta shifting around them. So for me personally, I'll just get us right and rolling. I think they're A tier. I think they're Blessed by the Dark Gods. I think they're a fantastic army. They have a lot of tools in the top of the meta. They have great data sheets with their Sacrosanct bricks, and Miracle Dice are always going to be a pain. Overall, they are very, very solid, and they activate in multiple phases of the game. They activate in the movement phase, they activate in the shooting phase and the fight phase. They have efficient units in all three. They have access to great resurrection, great damage reduction, and overall some decent mobility. Yeah,
I agree. The only thing I do think we were technically 3 months ago in a healthier meta, and that was only because Catan weren't where they're at now. And I do want to just preface that a little bit. I think they didn't get nerfed quite hard enough, and there's things that just can't deal with them. That's going to be the biggest change, I think, when we look at where this tier list ends up versus where we were at 3 months ago. There's going to be things that just go down because they're not able to just deal with that. They run into one of those, and they're going to have a lot harder time. But in general, as Phil said, right, this is through the lens of, can I go X and 1? Can I go undefeated, right, at a tournament? tournament. So, that is, you can't run into a Necrons player every single time, right? So, keep that in mind. Don't just think we're just like, they don't exist. Like, you can do great. It's still possible, but like, I don't know. I want to throw that in there. John, what are your thoughts on Sisters?
Yeah, I mean, not too much to add here other than like, I think they're a fine army. Like, I think Sisters have, some good data sheets. Like, Sacrosancts are great. It's nice to have a unit that could just kill God, right? And Morvenn Vahl. And they present an interesting stat check with just a bunch of 4-up invulns with 5 of Feel No Pains. So they can be tough to chew through. It really depends on like where the meta is looking. I would almost say that like people are teching a lot of like volume 1 damage in. So I think it's probably more likely than in previous metas that people just happen to have the counter to 30 Sacrosancts. I know that that's, at least for me, and I have a very narrow worldview when it comes to 40k because I only play one faction, but I was teching into Catan and randomly just had an answer to Sisters. Yeah, I think they're totally fine. Not much else to add from there.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Well, let's go with the next faction that did get a glow up the previous time, but it got toned back down a little bit. Is it enough to change for the Golden Boys, Phil? A little 10-point bap on the nose for both sizes of squad. Is that enough to deter the Golden Boys from running the Horde?
Yeah, probably. It's 60 points pretty much. It is very difficult to come back from, and Kyria Draxus went up in points, so you're losing a lot of efficiency. And if you're running a solo Inquisitor, which I know Folger was running in his most recent list, he had Kyria and a regular Inquisitor. So all of those went up in points. So you lose a lot of efficiency. You're either giving up like multiple squads of Witchseekers and Prosecutors, or you're on top of that losing like Kyria or losing a Callous Assassin or something like that. They will go down because of this. There is nothing more that like we can say about it because of the fact that they lost one of the, I would say, the staple way to play them. You could still run guard spam, but losing that efficiency across the board is incredibly tough, and having to pay that points increase, which is definitely due. They should not be as cheap as they were. The fact that I could run 6 units of Custodian Guard and 3 Land Raiders and 3 scoring units of Sisters and a Calidus and Kyria Draxus is a problem. That should never have been a thing. But I will tell GW, I know you're listening because Mastercrafted is a fantastic channel, and if you're not subscribed, you should be already. But we need the other data sheets to come up. We need playability and bikes and dreadnoughts and all that stuff. That doesn't make us rely on dumping all our points into one unit because it's incredibly efficient and we don't have any other choices. Yeah, for me, they drop down. For me, they're probably in Big Mac Gubbins. They don't necessarily fall in that top tier because it's a good list, but it's going to lose some efficiency.
I've got a question on that, which is, so the previous build, it was running, what, 27?
27, yeah.
Can you just drop 3, and does that get you where you need to go?
It could, yeah. You could drop a solo guy in each one. They are 45 points apiece, if I remember correctly. Like, you could. The problem is, like, the difference between efficiency in a 5-man with a banner versus a 4-man with a banner is drastically different. We're talking about 5 attacks on 2s with sustained or lethal. Believe it or not, like, they just don't hit as hard. And, they are damage to the army. Like, that is 6 units of damage to -1 damage is terrifying. So you need every bit of that efficiency with the wound rerolls and the +1 to wound in the detachment to actually have a chance of killing some of these things. So it does hurt. Every Custodian Guard that you don't have hurts significantly. It feels very uncomfortable for me to not have those 5-mans because you'd lose 3 of your 4 5-mans pretty much.
Okay. I will say though, I think it's a little crazy to drop them from A tier down to C tier for losing 3 Custodian Guard in the list.
I know, crazy. I wouldn't be against Touched by a Tech Priest. I wouldn't. I just think we rely so much on those units that it can be difficult.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to fight for Touched by a Tech Priest here.
That's fair.
I'm going to fight for it.
I think let's start with Touched. If we find that many things that are actively, I just don't think there's that many things that are, oh man. There's a lot of stuff that I think did drop from Touched that should be in Big Mech is going to be the difference. I think there's a lot of things that just don't have an answer for -1 damage.
Sure, absolutely. We'll move on to the next one. AdMech. After their huge points hit, after they dominated the meta for a couple glorious months, and after they won Worlds, they are definitely in a more balanced place. Where do you think they land, John? We're talking about mass bodies. I mean, chicken walkers are still good. I've seen people run different variations now where they're running a few more of the fighty robots, Cataphront destroyers, things like that. Where do you think AdMech stands now in the meta?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of tough for me just because we don't have a ton of like really good AdMech players in our area. That being said, like I could see someone being really successful with AdMech if they put a lot of reps into it. I think it's somewhere around Sisters, to be honest with you. Maybe not like Blessed by the Dark Gods, but I would kind of associate those two factions as similar power levels, right? Like the chickens are really strong with the crit 5s, sustained hits, twin linked, like they can top down a Catan. They got the full reels to hit still. Like, sure, they lost some stuff in there, in the updates, but, infiltrators and rust stalkers are still just, bottom line, they're just good data sheets. And yeah, I think that, in a good player's hands, I think they could do really well with AdMech still.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they're probably going to end up same with Sisters, not near the top of Blessed by the Dark Gods where they were previously. They definitely have gotten toned down. But I mean, we'll see. We gotta see what else is potentially still sitting in A tier. But yeah, I think definitely at least in A tier for sure to start with. Yeah.
Okay. Nice and easy. We'll move on to the pointy-eared elves themselves. I have a hot take here. I think they're at the top of Blessed by the Dark Gods. I think they are an incredible faction. I think they have every tool in the book. I think with the points changes and the detachment changes, it does hurt a little bit. Like Azerman going up 10, I didn't realize that he was so essential that GW felt the need to see a points change there. I think it's okay. I think it's very, very good. I like Aeldari a lot. I love tools, and there's not an army that has better tools than Aeldari.
Wow, that is a hot take, my man. For everybody listening, you guys are wondering what's Phil bringing to the Green Banner event. I think we got a little hint here. We got a little bit of a hint. I disagree. I really think that maybe in like the top players' hands, I could see them doing well with Aeldari, but I think just by and large, there's such a thin margin of error for the army, right? If you're not laying your screens appropriately, if you don't hit the damage spike when you need to, I think at the end of the day, Aeldari doesn't have that damage capability that it used to, where people couldn't disrespect you and just shove their army in your face. I think many, many players playing Aeldari will struggle with people just shutting their brains off and just saying, I'm just going to run at you.
Yeah, I think I agree with John. I just think, I don't think Aeldari is bad. Do not get me wrong. I just think it is not at the top of Blessed. I think you can make the argument that it is still, last time, even after those nerfs, we knocked it down to touched by a tech priest. So I still think they're there. I think they like you said, they have a lot of tools. They can be very good. But when it comes to an army that has just gotten nerf after nerf after nerf, that margin for error to go on a run to actually go X and 1, X and O at a tournament like this, like we're talking about, I think Eldar does not possess that. And I think there's still a lot of natural predators to that, and some shifts we're going to see that are also going to hurt them. Like the fact that Dorn's went up for guard, and if more people actually commit to even the grizzled element, right? They start running the elite hordy version of grizzled, not even actual recon. It's going to struggle with both of those builds immensely. Like I don't think they have enough attacks, and they're not efficient enough to deal with bodies in mass. We're going to see that, and they're an army that is very specialized in how they apply their damage, and they do it very well. But when you have to deal with the horde meta and the tanky Catan meta at the same time, there's not enough overlap on those data sheets, I think.
Excited to see you prove us wrong, Phil.
Okay, can't wait. Are they above Custodes or below Custodes?
I think they're below. I put them below. Yeah. I have a higher opinion of Custodes than you guys do, I think.
I mean,
I think they're very similar, to be honest. I don't know if it matters to me, so you guys can decide. But
okay, we'll put them
we
below
can keep it
Custodes
moving.
now. It hurts, but it's fine. All right, Lane. The Dorns went up in points. Guard is trash now. Are we putting them with Imperial Agents, or do they still stand a chance in this meta?
Yeah, they definitely are not probably the highest likelihood to win a game right behind Necrons. That's definitely not exactly where they're at, in my opinion. No, they're so strong. If you have the models and you have the ability to run recon element, I think it's one of the. If you can run just straight up recon, like do that. Be Nemo. If you like your back and you don't want to hate yourself the next Monday, maybe just go with like the Grizzled Elite, the Khazarkin and Scions, more elite infantry with some ponies mixed in. Like that is extremely strong. It has tons of OC. It has efficient shooting with reroll wounds on objectives with the Scions. It's so good. And even with the nerfs to Dorns, it's not like those builds aren't playable. Like I'm looking at my combined list, I'm like, I switch out some trash and I'm still totally fine with this. It's guard is still in a very good spot. Like I think it's probably I've heard some people arguing that it's the top army in the game. I think Necrons still have an easier time going X and 1. When it comes to like in the best players in the world's hands, I don't know what stops like Nemo on Recon Guard. Like, I don't know what exists that does that.
I don't know if it exists, man.
Yeah.
You know, he just went on a crazy run at Pyra. I think there's, you know, like you mentioned, there's like a hobby cost to running that type of a list. But like at the end of the day, we're playing a rock, paper, scissors game of 40K here, and they answer Catan, right? They answer Catan spam, and they have a heavily favored matchup there. So it's hard to argue that they aren't, to be honest, the best army in the game. Not many armies in the game could say they have a good matchup into Catan and positive matchups into the rest of the meta. And I'd be hard pressed to say, like, even if you're teching into it, you know, what army is teching into Guard that isn't losing all the other games that they're playing? Right, killing T3 one wound infantry. You know, it's just not real.
Yeah, it is real and it can hurt you, but thankfully, not many people have the back to do it. So you know,
True that.
we'll see. But yeah, I think it's got to be it's mastercrafted no matter what. But we'll see. We could talk about that when Necrons comes up. What do we got? What do we got next, Phil?
Black Templars, our crusading boys. Once again, no changes, but we did see repulsor executioners go up, repulsors went up, and combi weapon lieutenants went up. So Space Marines as a whole definitely are feeling a little bit of pain, a little bit of discomfort, where they might have to use something that isn't a combi weapon lieutenant, even though it's been a staple ever since it's come out. So Black Templars Repexes didn't get a hit. Regular repulsor executioners did. So as of right now, they haven't seen significant changes. The combi weapon lieutenant, they will feel, because that is the same data sheet. As a unit that they took consistently, I see some slight changes, but I think they are in a very solid spot. Are they going to struggle into some of the things at the top of the meta? Yes. But Crusader Bricks went down in points, so they're down at 300 now for a 20-man, which is a great thing. It could cover the cost of a combi weapon lieutenant. I think Bastion has a lot of play. For Black Templars specifically, because those Crusader bricks are battle line, and there is a lot of value there. Are they good into the top of the meta? I don't think Necrons like that matchup at all. Catans really don't want to see that many bodies that are efficient in combat and have access to +1 to wound and have access to rerolls. Like, they just mob them and they just die. So Black Templars has a lot of tools at the top of the meta, with the Blood Surge, with the ability to tie up, with great shooting in the Repexes. Yeah, it's still very, very good.
Yeah, and funnily enough, it actually is one of the things that doesn't have terrible matchups into both Horde Guard and into, you know, Catan at the same time. Like, it's very good. That Blood Surge, you're not getting a ton of activations into it. Yeah, it's going to be worse into Grizzled. Grizzled is efficient enough to deal with it, but it's good into both. Like, I think their stock only went up. It wasn't major changes, but they are a winner more by proxy than anything.
So where are we thinking? Touched by a Tech Priest, or are they higher than that?
I think they still remain untouched. I still think that there's a lot of things that, like, they just don't feel quite as good at into a lot of the more A tier armies. They're still definitely playable into a lot of stuff, but I think they're still just chilling in touched.
Absolutely fair. Sanguinius's boys, they are up next. The Blood Angels, as someone who has played Space Marines consistently, I really like them. They're solid, they're fast. RCO is a great detachment. They didn't see any changes besides Astorath going down. For me personally, I think they're still Mastercraft. I think they're still S tier. I think they're a fantastic army that's good into mass bodies like Recon, because they have enough attacks with good AP efficiency. They have access to ball preds, which are fantastic. They have access to fight on death, sticky. Yeah, they're just good.
Yeah, I think they're like the premier melee pressure army at this point in the game. It is my nightmare as a Tau player. I love move blocking people, and it is impossible to move block those guys. And like a Death Company brick with like a 5-man with a character will just top down a Ghost Keel. It'll top down a Riptide. So they've got great damage output as well. So I think, you know, obviously just Necrons existing is a huge problem for them. Just -1 damage anywhere. So that's the only thing keeping them down a little bit. So I'd probably vie for them more to be in Blessed by the Dark Gods, but I do think they are the best melee pressure army in the game.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think that I would say they are the top army, at least for now, in Blessed, because when we did our last tier list, right, like, the game was very close. Things were better, but they weren't like blowing shit away. And then 500 Worlds came out, and now we're where we're at. And I think the gulf between where the top armies are, and where the good armies are, I think that demarcation is above where Blood Angels are right now.
I still think they're high. I'll put them in top of Blessed by the Dark Gods, but I think they're above Sisters. Like, they are a market.
Yes, they're the top Blessed for sure.
100%.
They're amazing. But because Necrons exist, that will ruin any Blood Angels players run on the spot if they have Catan.
There's enough efficiency there with the amount of shooting or amount of combat, lethal hits, access to rerolls, +1 to wound. even though their damage gets reduced to 1, I still think there's value there. But we'll keep going. Semantics of getting hung up on one of those things, I think, is unfair, because I think like Blood Angels being able to go X and 1 is very, very reasonable. And all we're saying is it's a small percentage difference. But if we move on, CSM, they got 2 new detachments. They got a bunch of brand new units. They got a Huron. They got the Mess of the Maelstrom. They got all these boxes and all these units that are so great. I know the CSM players are incredibly happy. I can't wait to see the new Devilers on the board. I can't wait to see that new Combat Obliterator Terminator unit, which is going to be sick. Yeah, they got a lot of love. John, you have a bunch of CSM fanatics over at HM, and I know they're very excited. What are your thoughts? What do you think, CSM? Where do they land now after the changes?
Yeah, I think CSM's a great army. I think, there is one nerf that they copped randomly, which could have a pretty significant impact. I don't see it deterring good players like Trey from having successful runs at GTs, but the fact that you can't bring Noise Marines anymore with CSM is really rough. It's to be seen how they adjust to those changes, but I think they have the tools at their disposal to be successful. So I would probably put them in. It's kind of tough. I would probably put them in, lower Blessed by the Dark Gods, higher Touched by a Tech Priest. At the end of the day, they're kind of a combination of like a fair army with a high damage ceiling. So I think that they like this meta with Catan personally, because they can handle the stat check. But at the end of the day, there are other armies that just have an advantage from like a speed perspective, or just the capability to remove marine bodies from the table, which is very common in the meta today, where they might also struggle there.
Yeah, and for those of you who did buy a bunch of Noise Marines as a CSM player, right? Thankfully, it's only Renegade Warband. Want to make sure we preface that. You can still play them in the other detachments.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So go just play them in Renegade, where they get extra AP, and you can still do all the rerolls getting out of a transport. Three units now just isn't busted like you could do in Renegade Warband. But yeah, very, very good tech still, for sure.
Okay, the Secret Boys are next. Our Dark Angels, obviously, their place in the meta is very interesting. They are Space Marine bodies, but they are a unique stack check because they're one of the few factions that still run Terminators. Deathwing Knights are fantastic. The Lion is a great character. He's one of the most durable characters in the game with a 3-up invul, and he also has access to fights first. He has access to flat 4 damage. Right, he was one of the few things that like Catan really don't want to go into, because he might just turn around and crack them. Like they may just die off the Lion fighting them. So overall, it has consistently been one of those stat check armies that's very unique, but there's different ways to run them. I've seen people who like the Raven Wing variation of it, of running a lot of bikes and running speeders and things like that. And then you have the traditional Wrath or Gladius. And while a Space Marine detachment always has Gladius, like as long as they have access to it, they will always be a good version of Space Marines, because Gladius is that good of a detachment. I don't know if I put them in the same vein as Black Templars for me. Like
Yeah.
Touched by Tech Priests, they fill a lot of the same roles and responsibilities. They like this meta. They like the Catans. They like being able to deal with those things because they have the tools to do it. And at the end of the day, they're still Space Marines with Gladius. So still very solid.
Yeah. Again, that's their only boogeyman, right? Or that's a bigger problem they're facing. But now more and more people are teching for -1 damage, right? So like running a lot of Deathwing Knights, it doesn't feel as good as it did previously and stuff. I think we had them in like bottom of Blessed last time. I think they're definitely in touch this time. They go down a little bit for sure, but they're still very viable.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like we'll call a spade here. At best, they're the third best Marine faction. So I think, given that fact, they should certainly be in touch by a Tech Priest.
Yep, absolutely fair. All right, our Stinky Boys are next. The Death Guard for me have sat on the shelf for quite a few weeks, but that definitely does not show their value for me personally, because Death Guard is still an incredibly solid army, and they, to be fair, really like this meta. Their detachments are good. Mortarian's Hammer, Virulent is good. Champions of Contagion is good. So there's a lot of value in this detachment as a whole, or in this army as a whole, and their contagions are honestly sick. Like -1 save, -1 to hit, are to be able to just like turn that on and not have to roll for it or do anything, and it's just your contagion aura is very, very solid. I think for me personally, seeing it played at the top level, going X and 1, I probably put this in Blessed. I probably put this like at the same vein as CSM. Like I don't know if they're above CSM. I don't think they have a lot of the same tools at the top of the meta, but I really like the lines of play right now for Death Guard.
I feel like John thinks they're worse than Custodes. but he's not ready to say it. And then I think I could be swayed. I do think they are very versatile, as Phil's saying. I really think that your ability to, what am I playing, right? Am I playing into Horde Guard? Am I playing into Necrons? Like they actually have that flexibility to change up with their army rule what is helping them. And I think a lot of things that were very elite that kind of outshined them, that's kind of what that was kind of the fall of Death Guard, really, was the fact that other things were just as elite, but just cheaper. Those armies are now going back up in points for the most part, to where I think they're not as strong or as busted as they were kind of like peak summer. But I do agree with Phil. I think they're very strong. I think we had them like bottom of touched. I think they could either be top of touched or bottom of blessed. I'd be happy seeing that either way. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I'm having a tough time with this one, Phil. I'm not going to lie to you. I think it's my Tau biasy, like hopping in here. But my issue with Death Guard is you have to like stand in front of, like directly in front of them and let them punch you in the face. And if not, just like most armies in the game, you get to punch them first. And Death Guard, they're really not that tough of an army, right? If you're running Plague Marines and Rhinos, they're not that quick, right? You have the Death Shroud as an out, which is nice, and the haulers and whatnot, but they're more fair at this point. So I would have to go with personally touched by a Tech Priest here. I think, there's a reason we're not seeing a lot of high-level players like you, Phil, playing Death Guard. I mean, I think it's because it doesn't give you the best chance compared to a lot of other armies to go X1 at a GT. I think there's just a high likelihood of hitting a bad matchup, hitting a speedy army, and just getting hard countered.
Do you think the top of the meta is speedy arm? Like, obviously, Blood Angel's wicked fast. Sisters is pretty quick as well. Guard can be incredibly fast. There's a couple other factions that I think we're going to see closer to the top. Drukhari as well.
Tau.
Yes, Tau will be at the top of the meta. I can't believe I'm saying it out loud, but Tau will be at the top of the meta.
Yep.
I do think there's still a lot of tools there. I think the indirect is probably one of the best in the game. That Death Guard have. I think, access to some of the best Overwatch in the game is really, really nice to have. Honestly, you're relying on Virulent. You're relying on sticky objectives. You're relying on the -1 damage. You're probably running Mortarion if you're in that. And you are relying on your durability. So I know we talked often about like relying on a stat check can be incredibly difficult into a lethal army. And you're absolutely right. But I've played the Custodes in a Death Guard matchup multiple times, and I hate it for Custodes. It is not fun because the -1 to hit on top of the -1 damage means I probably don't kill what I actually need to kill.
Did you consider for a second bringing Death Guard to this GT in a couple of weeks? Be honest.
I did,
really?
yes.
Okay,
strongly.
Fair enough.
Like, I've played it enough times where I feel like I want to run it.
Okay, got to give it to the Death Guard player then. You know the army better than I do.
Yep. I think they're there. I think they have the tools. I think they're below CSM. I think they're like incrementally in this mix.
Sure.
Okay. We unfortunately, although we don't have a lot of great AdMech players in our region, we do have a lot of great Drukhari players because we have two of the best in the world, Cody Giroux and Nick Rosasco, who play Drukhari exclusively. So unfortunately, all three of us have been on the wrong side of either Cody Giroux or Nick Rosasco as they run 80 witches at us. And unfortunately, Drukhari didn't see any changes that are significant. Their charge strat is still the same. All of those items that they had previously have not changed. They are still just as annoyingly fantastic. Elaine, are we happy with this?
I mean, I think the most surprising thing is they had points buffs. There were things that they just weren't playing that they're like, you know what, Drukhari needs some love. And I guess, that's what they needed. I honestly couldn't believe it. I thought the proposed changes, like there was all the leaks or whatever the other day, and if it actually went to just being the charge is reactive at the time, I think they are a very easy to handle army. Like they're still very, very good. They still do all the things and apply damage incredibly well, but that strat alone not being touched, I think just makes so many matchups for them so much greener than they should be, and stuff. I don't think, like, I still think it's one of those things where if we do start seeing Horde Guard, they're not going to be able to handle it just to perfection. It's too many bodies. Even with the insane amount of anti-infantry attacks that Drukhari has, a guard army mobbing around and heroicing in another 20 just because they feel like it, you're not cutting through all 25. And then they still just fall back and shoot because that tech's just built in. I think there's plenty of things that slow them down, but I think they have such a high chance in the right players' hands to just win. Like they're still, at least Blessed by the Dark Guards, if not still in Mastercrafted. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm struggling with this one. Again, I think my Tau bias is coming in here, but like I look at that matchup as like basically unwinnable. Like I think if I hit Nick Rosasco or Cody Giroux at an event, I'm just gonna go grab a beer. To be honest with you guys, like I'll try it just for fun because I've never had played the matchup before. But yeah, I think it's really great. I don't know how it compares to the top of the meta. If you think about like Blood Angels, I have no idea what that matchup looks like. So I would probably put them somewhere in Blessed by the Dark Gods. Just the reason being is just kind of colloquially, like anecdotally, you're not seeing a ton of tournament wins out of Drukhari, even though they seem really good. So obviously, in a top 1% Drukhari player's hands, you can go really, really well, or you can do really well, and that's what we see. When we see Drukhari at a tournament. But I think jump a couple rungs further down, and you start to realize how difficult of an army it is to really play. So for me, it would be right near that Blood Angels level.
Would totally agree, because the skill that it takes to actually be effective with Drukhari is much higher than I think what it would be effective to play Sisters well and play Blood Angels well. And I'll give a shout out for Trey to play CSM well. That is smooth brain, and that's coming from a dude who ran Custodes for the past couple of weeks. Like, I do think it is a very difficult army to play well, because you make one mistake, and Nick will tell you this, like in his final against Matt Evans, he made like 2 critical mistakes that caused him to lose the Lilith brick earlier than he should have, and like that can end a game very quickly. So you're playing on, appropriately so, a razor's edge of playing that well or not. So it's very easy to not play that well. I actually think like I would put them at the CSM level for me personally. Just like the amount of skill it takes to run well, good players will run it well, and they will go out and be successful X&1, but it is not easy. It is not something you just like pick up off the shelf and run 5 times and now you're ready to run it at a GT and go X&1. Like it's probably not going to happen.
Totally fair.
All right. Emperor's Children, for some reason, GW is still just knocking them into the ground.
I mean, something's got to go in Big Mech Gubbins, right?
Probably, yes.
Yeah. So Drukhari's again, Emperor's Children, not a popular army in our meta, right? And so I think that's for a reason, right? If you opt in to playing the game the way Emperor's Children wants you to play, and you infiltrate your infiltrating unit like normal, and you let the infractors hit them, and then they get their pledge up, and they get to 3 pledge, and then you're in a they full send their entire army, and you're scrapping. They've got lethal sustained up. Sure, it can get sketchy really quickly, but you don't have to opt into that game plan, and it's kind of again like a house of cards that falls apart. That just doesn't have the damage to keep up with the meta today, in my opinion, if you meet them at full force, right? If you opt into the gameplay loop of I'm going to trade my units like I normally do, you just kind of have to ignore that and just accept that, hey, this army at the end of the day has Demon Princes that'll do 5 mortals and then hit you with 6 attacks at 8/2/3 with no rerolls. And at the end of the day, that's really not a lot of damage.
Yeah. Nope, absolutely fair. And it's disappointing because I would have expected a new faction like this to last a little bit longer in the top of the meta, and unfortunately, that is not the case.
Yeah, they just it's not pretty with Catan in the mix too. You just damage 2 armies just struggle. Like it's down there. It's got to be down there. It's sad, but hopefully 160 mil base defilers will save the day. Eventually. That's not going to help either. But we can feel like it does.
But they advance a charge.
There it is. And advance and shoot. They can actually clear a 4-inch wide ruin, with an advance. It's great.
Something.
It's so bad. Why is the Defiler not? Why did they not tone it down? For the love of God, make it smaller.
That's a great question. But we'll move on to one of the smallest footprint armies. Just kidding. It's huge. It's Genestealer Cult. They're taking over the entire board. They haven't seen any changes either. I would say they're in a relatively decent place. Someone who obviously runs Genestealer Cult all the time in every variation of Genestealer Cult, from Final Day to Biosynctic Brood Surge to Outlander Claw to Host of Ascension. I've run it all, tasted it all. The cult tastes great. The problem is the cult is average, and it's really, really tough into the top of the meta. Like, I could say Necrons overall is incredibly difficult because I just can't kill them. They just won't die. I have to layer so many forms of damage to try to bring down just one. And then the second I lose my efficiency, whether it be mining lasers or aberrants or whatever the case is, I just don't kill anything. So I'm relying solely on the fact that I'm trying to auto see and deny that way. I am flip primary that way. It is not an easy game plan. Blood Angels also terrifying. Any of those fast melee armies that can get my biscuits and like advance, charge, fly over my screens, as John was saying, like anything that can go over your screens in an army that relies on them, it feels real bad. And then if I were to go into Drukhari, I just lose. The way John feels about Drukhari is the way I feel about Drukhari, and I've played that matchup. I just lose. They have so many attacks, and they're so efficient into everything that I have. It just picks up whatever it wants at will, and none of my movement tricks matter.
I think you said it the best. You should decide where it goes.
I would say probably right below Aeldari, maybe here. I wouldn't be against either one. Like, they're fine. They have play. I've gone X and 1 plenty of times with Genestealer Cult. I've won tournaments with them. But at the end of the day, in the top of this meta, the probability of you going X and 1 is harder. One, because of the skill cap. Like, you have to have played them quite a bit to be comfortable enough to go X and 1. And on top of that, you're already hurting for what you need to do into the top of the meta.
Yeah. All right. Grey Knights didn't get touched. Where are they landing after not getting any definitive buffs that matter? They got the Custodes treatment from last time. Terminators went down. The worst version of the Terminator that no one ran is now cheaper. Are they more playable? No.
You know, I think it was Jack Harpster. I think he said it best, but their army rule and their data sheets are just completely at odds with each other, right? Like, they are a melee army at heart that drops 9 inches away from armies and shoots stormbolters at them and strength 10 guns. Like, yeah, that was cute 2 years ago. They've gotten no updates other than the GMNDKs getting a little bit of a facelift. But again, those are T8 13 wound models with a 4-bin vuln. That is trivial to kill in this meta. This meta is so killy. Those guys don't stick around. They hit something once, sure, and they die immediately. Other than that, it's hard to find any credible damage in the rest of that book.
Yeah, the real thing, and if you're listening, GW, as much as I don't want to deal with this, the Grey Knights rule should be they get free rapid ingress and they pick up stuff at the end of their movement phase. You can just move something off the board, like you can use it to score, it held primary, and then you can pick it up and use it aggressively with 0 CP rapid ingress, because that makes sense on what they would actually be trying to do. I don't want to have to deal with that, but it's what it should be, because that would actually allow Grey Knights to apply their damage in a way that made any fucking sense.
Yeah, and once again, like we talk about what they hate in the top of the meta, like they don't want to see Necrons at all. Guard is going to screen them out from anything meaningful. They'll never be able to touch, charge, or get into something that they actually want to get into. Blood Angels is just going to run them down. Tau, well, they're only 3 damage bodies. Relying on an invul, those Riptides will just rip through squats. They're going to ignore cover. They're going to +1 AP. They're just going to, the efficiency into them is, we're just talking about infantry bodies at the end of the day, that you're relying on a 2-up save, and hopefully you have benefits of cover. But if any army can strip those things, you're much worse off for it. I would say they're probably above EC just because of, I think Banishers has play, Warpbane, just in terms of damage output is not awful, but they are by no means in this touch by attack priests. They are struggling for sure.
And they still have a lot of play into the rest of the meta, right? A lot of the things that are in A tier even and stuff, they can play into some of those, but it's going to be so hard. It's not a great look for them right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Nope. Absolutely fair. Okay. Well, we have a spot for this next one. We don't need to spend too much time on it. Imperial Agents.
Not an army.
What are we doing? GW, please, for the love of everything that is holy, just like if you're going to do a codex, if you're going to do all these things, I'm going to keep saying it. You sold people on the idea that this was going to be a thing. You gave army, you gave data sheets, you gave brand new models, you did all this stuff. And you have not done what you have assured the community to do of giving a reasonable codex that is playable in this edition. Now, we've gotten comments before, and it's something that I take to heart significantly, is like, we look at this obviously from a competitive lens, and not everyone does. So if you want to play Imperial Agents and you want to go have a good time, strongly encourage you to do so. But I want everyone to have as much as they can, a fair and balanced game when they walk up to the table. And unfortunately, if you walk up to the table at your game store or whatever, and you bring Imperial Agents, and the person across you has Ultramarines and Blades, like, you're not going to have a good time. And my fear is someone leaves the game because their army is not performing like everyone else's army even is capable of doing. Yeah, and that's disappointing for how long they've been down in the dumps. It hurts me.
And if you are one of the casual players, 40 minutes into this competitive tier list, we appreciate the shit out of you if you're still watching, just so you know. Thanks for tuning in. But yeah, Imperial Agents, for the love of God, get something going in 11th GW. And hopefully the same applies to this next faction. Imperial Knights, still just kind of meh. It was in Hive World Scrap. Is it moving?
No. I mean, they rely on skews the same way some of these other armies that we've talked about, like they rely on skews. Like when we went to Oregon, Florida Alliance was running the triple Lancer with double Atropos. Like, is that cute and terrifying? Yes, especially in a teams matchup. And, you could have a whole different bracket for teams, like, because we're talking about a different variation. But if we talk about singles, no, there's so much +1 to wound out there. There's so much reroll wounds out there. It just dies. And one of these things will go forward, kill something, and then it just dies because this game is so lethal right now. It just doesn't have the tools.
Yeah. And if you're going to be the stat check army, you need to be the best version of it. And you just not remotely are the best version of the stat check right now.
No. Nope. Okay. Well, we had another one of John's buddies over at MHM come on, Caleb, and he talked about the Leagues of Votann detachment. I am very high on them. I think Votann are in a very solid place right now. I think they're good in the meta, and they have a lot of tools. I like this new detachment just because it cranks out damage. Rerolls to wound in combat, rerolls to hit and shooting. A reactive move to get back inside a transport is really nice. So overall, I think the previous detachments were good. Delve, Need Guard, Hearthband, and now you have this new one. I think Votann are in a good place. And that new Votann model, the Berserker model, he's a little expensive, but he's sick.
He slaps. He's a little overpriced, 100%. But he's if you put him with 5 Berserks, that still bodies most things that aren't a giant stat check in themselves. It's still very efficient. There was a question of, why would I add him instead of taking, just 10 Berserks, right? Is 5 more models just better? And you could make the argument, but at the same time, if you have the extra points, that dude at flat 4 damage, there's certain profiles that you now just handle with him. And he also just buffs, your Berserks. And he also is a small footprint now. You're adding 1 model instead of 5. And GW boards, that's a struggle for Votann. They are an army that needs to stage as close as possible because they are not fast, not remotely. So I think give him a try. He's going to probably impress a lot of people, I think. Love to see him come down still.
Yeah, I think Votann, I'll be honest, I think it's similar to where it's been in a lot of tier lists. I think it's a fair army. It's sorry about the dog, guys. I think it's a totally fair army. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much to say other than my experience as a Tau player into it has been very positive because it's just so slow. So it's hard for me to give a good judgment call. So I'll lean on you guys.
Yeah, I think it's in the fair place, right? I think it's above Dark Angels. I think they have a few more tools there. I think they're a little bit more efficient there, but they are by no means competing in the top of the meta unless you are a very skilled player, which I think a lot of Votann players are because I think they like running Votann. I think it's a very enjoyable faction for them, which I totally understand. All right, well, we've let them slumber for long enough. The Necrons unfortunately have awakened, and they are still up there. They didn't get any meaningful changes that I think they're going to affect them, besides maybe losing a Catan. But during the pre-show, John was pointing out, maybe we see double 20-man warrior bricks with the Catans, with all the other trading pieces. And it's honestly, that might be more terrifying than the max bricks or the max units of 5 Catan. I think could be even tougher. For me, this is still right at the top of the meta.
Yeah. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, I honestly, I hated Necron meta, man. It's the only meta I don't hate more was the Imperial Knights, Chaos Knights meta when it was happening, but for the same reasons, right? Your opponent's just ooga booga units at you that you can't deal with. You're living and dying by the 4-ups. And yeah, it's just unfortunate that with the complexities of 40k and how awesome of a game it is and how interactive it can be, that we've gotten to a point where the best armies in the game are the most linear interaction patterns, which is just super unfortunate. It should be a complex game with complex interactions, but instead we have huge units that are extremely tough moving directly at you. You have to point every gun in your army to kill them, and you have no idea where the dice are going to go. There's so many layers of defensive buffs. There's a -1 damage. They can scan you on the 4-up invulns. They can scan you on the 5-up feel no pains. Like the list goes on. I'm really disappointed in GW that they didn't recognize that this is just an unfun play pattern to be participating in, and do something about it. It really makes me think that like that guy Josh Roberts is like in on it, because like genuinely, it's just kind of like how else could they have gotten, off this light, like comically light when like the last 4 or 5 balance patches, the top dog just gets murdered into oblivion. Like the one time I really want it to happen, it doesn't happen. Come on, guys.
Yeah, and I don't know. The biggest thing too is like what this was the thing that made the update the worst, right? Is like they knew what was the problem and then they just didn't do enough. They had 10 points to each of the Catan when that was obviously not like why in the world was it that way where they put the big heavy tax. It was like an extra 25 points per enhancement in Pantheon. Why was that not the tax on the Catans and then you added 10 to each of the, enhancements? Right? Like that would have made way more sense because they're still efficient in any detachment. It's not like, oh man, it's just Pantheon that's the problem. Pantheon's like the easiest one to deal with for the majority of players. Like if I can't kill you, I can damn sure out-OC you and you only have X amount of models and units. Like I'll just outscore you. Like sure, you're going to kill all of my army in Pantheon. Sure, but you're not going to outscore me. That's just a given. Like I think that's the problem is they balanced it around. The detachment was the least oppressive, and they did the same with guard. Honestly, like if people start running all the recon stuff, it's going to feel way more oppressive than any of the shit people have been running for the last 2 months.
Yeah, because if we look at like Eldar when they were top of the meta, they got smacked. Aspect hosts got ripped apart. Like their stratagems got changed. Their points got increased. You couldn't take bigger units, right? Like they just ripped that thing to shreds. GSC, Host of Ascension, that detachment, they just tore down to the hinges. There was nothing left. Same like Death Guard, it was points increases across the board to the point that it was significant. They changed the rule for the deep strike, for the rapid ingress, like no longer being able to rapid ingress inside 6 inches. Now it was only during your deep strike could you do that, right? They have had changes up to this point. Same with Black Templars when they were, Crusader spam and the Sword Brother and bricks with all that. Like they have consistently taken a relatively large chunk. AdMech, like AdMech just won Worlds, and what do they do to it? They just cut that thing in half. They added like 200 points to it, to the top lists, and like, okay, great. Now they're still good. This faction is still fine, but they're in a much more reasonable place that's not dominating the meta, that's causing issues. I don't understand the changes to Necrons. I've tried justifying it in my head, and I just can't get there because the GW's pattern for rules development does not match this.
Yeah, and again, there's still things that do beat Necrons. You can still beat Necrons. It's just how much easier it is for them to play the game is what we don't like to see. You can still do it. We don't want to be all doom and gloom. You can still build stuff into your list depending on what you're playing. If you're playing Grey Knights, I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding. But it's one of those things. It's definitely overtuned. It's just going to be what it is for the next 3 months, apparently. So strap in and bring your anti-tank.
Yeah, got to be prepared for sure. Okay, next up, the Green Tide, Orks. We are not seeing significant changes with them. They are definitely one of those average armies. Very straightforward play pattern. Definitely interesting, but overall, they don't stand out to me. I think they've lost a lot of their luster in the top of the meta because I think, John said it the best. Like they're supposed to be a melee pressure army at the end of the day. They don't do melee pressure as well as some of the armies here at the top. Even Blood Angels, Sisters, Drukhari, Chaos, CSM, even Death Guard. Some of these matchups just rip them apart.
Yeah, they got to be one of the worst armies in the game, honestly. They were an early 10th edition Codex release that didn't get any love throughout the entire edition, and it was a huge missed opportunity by GW to breathe some life into this faction. I think it was complete malpractice that whoever the balance team decided to take a look at all the factions in 40k and just wasn't thinking about orc players at all. And like the fact that, there are some just orc mains out there. And guess what? A lot of them accumulated new armies this edition because the army was so damn bad.
And when it was good, it didn't last long because it instantly got bopped. Like wild.
Oh yeah. Like Mordaka. What did they do when that was broken? They ripped that thing down to the studs. It won our GT top 3. And they're just like, nope, never doing that again. But Necrons, they're fine. Like we don't need to make major adjustments there. So for me, they're below EC. I think To be fair, like EC just, I think it's inconsequential. I could care less of where it goes here, but I don't even know. Like, it could be in High World Scrap, and I think that'd be perfectly fine.
I think it is.
I think you can still play it. I don't think it's worse than Imperial Knights. I think it's definitely needs love, and I'm sad to see the state of Orks, but I think they still can play the game very well on a fundamental level. It's not as good as it could be, but you still have beast bosses, you still have plenty of OC. You have one of the few armies that, if you do see Recon Guard, has mass attacks, and doesn't care that you're +3 to save for no reason at all. Like, again, they're not the best melee pressure. They are lackluster in multiple ways, but I do not think they are worse than Imperial Knights.
Yeah.
Fair
Nope.
enough.
Okay, we'll put them just above Imperial Knights at High World
Just
Scrap.
for you, Lane.
Just for me.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Well, where are our blueberries? Because I think it's just this. Marnius, sure, you lose the Victrix. Marnius, sure, Army Weapon Lieutenant went up. Repulsor Executioners went up. That doesn't change Blades. It doesn't really substantially change Gladius. Marnius is still cracked. Even without the Victrix, it just makes him more reasonable, which is a good thing. But gosh, is it still real good.
Who would have thought having just some of the best characters in the game and +1 to wound oath still for no reason at all is just cracked? Yeah.
Don't sell me on it.
Just good old boring Ultramarines, man. Back at the top again.
Yeah.
Hey, hi, Josh
never
Roberts. Hi.
Please just give us something different. It doesn't, Ultramarines don't need +1 to wound. They really don't.
All right, what do we got next?
Space Wolves, Stormlands, Gladius, average. Are they just
Michael Mann proved a point. That was sick.
Yep.
See him kick some ass with Space Wolves. But again, they're just sitting in that middling tier of best Marine Army 3 through 5, right? And so I think they could fit anywhere between Touched by Attack Priests and Big Mac Gubbins. Like,
you can put them here, you can put them
they're
here.
fine. They're a fine army, but at the end of the day, they don't do any damage. They're just a pile of stats that are 4-up invulns, and a lot of armies can pass the stat check nowadays. Yeah, they don't have like the OC to back it up, right? So yeah, just not a high opinion of Space Wolves right now.
All right, some of the biggest winners of the data slate. Tau, did they make the jump all the way to Master Crafted? Is that the case, John?
I'll lead on you guys for this, but I really think that when I look at all of the armies on this tier list, there's really only 2 of them that I feel like I have a bad matchup into. And it's specifically Recon Element and Necrons, but you can build for both of those matchups. What we just gained in the Twin Lance is an absurd data sheet that, we will come to learn how it impacts these types of matchups, but it fundamentally breaks the physics of Warhammer 40k. Like the way that unit plays, your opponent is going to have to solve a completely unique problem every single turn of the game. And I think in the right player's hands, I think it's a completely broken data sheet. It does too much damage. It has too many rules. It costs not enough. And I think it goes into every single tile list until the edition ends. I don't care if it's 220 points. I don't care if it's 240 points. I'll be playing this unit. And I think it adds an awesome new element to the Tau army. It allows you to manipulate primary, which is one of the weaknesses of Tau. And it allows you to attack staging points, right? Rapid ingress into move 6 inches is gross. The unit doesn't need a guide. So again, it can attack staging points. It doesn't need stealth suits to hop in behind ruins as well. It's a forward operator that operates by itself. I think it adds an amazing element to the tower.
100%.
Yeah, it's terrifying. How at the top of the meta is a real problem because I'll be honest, for those that are hearing John gleefully talk about this brand new unit, might feel a slight tingle in their chest of like, oh, are we in for a bad time? No, we're not in for like a super bad time, but you better be prepared for how to deal with it. Like, you have to have tools to deal with Tau. And one of the things that people struggle with is like, it is very hard to outshoot Tau. It is next to impossible. You have to be building in a certain way, and you have to have the tools actually to go out there and do it, because we're talking about one of the toughest armies to outshoot. And especially on some of these GW layouts or WTC layouts where it's just open, like Monka Tau running you down, taking every angle that you could. Like, you can never hide from them on some of these layouts, and they will just blast you. So, like, they are already preemptively getting into a point in the game that some armies just can't handle, which is tough. So the feels bad from Tau might get worse. You might feel like on the wrong mission, on the wrong deployment, on the wrong layout, you might just be like, well, I think I just lose this game because I have nowhere to hide. I have to play the game so restricted, and Tau is just going to touch every objective. They're going to be all out there with their trash, and you're not going to want to trade anything with them.
And the issue is, right, they're one of the strongest trading armies of the game, and they just picked up an uninteractive unit that trades by itself and scores primary by itself. In order to counter it, you need to put units on objectives preemptively. And if I want to, I could just shoot that unit with the fire and fade unit and hide behind a wall again. I don't even have to commit anything to it. So I think it's fundamentally broken. It's fundamentally broken.
Thank goodness it's not viable for Green Banner, so we don't got to worry about it just yet. So
Upsetting.
we have a little bit of respite, but they are coming. So are they above Ultras?
I think so, personally. I think there's an argument where, so I think Tau has a good matchup into Ultras, personally. But I think there's an argument for Ultras having a better matchup into Necrons than Tau does. In my opinion, Blood Angels are a predator for Tau, so there is. But every single army under Blood Angels, I feel like I have a significantly winning matchup into.
Sure. Makes sense.
Lane, you're suspiciously quiet over there.
It's just good, man. Nothing to add. It's just solid. But we are over an hour, so we're gonna keep it cranking. T-Suns up next. I didn't see much changes. They got the same nerfs as demons, with birds going up a little bit. Still very solid. We haven't been blessed by the dark gods. I don't think they move. Do you guys? I think they're still just a very solid army, applies damage well, and you're still seeing Terminators. You're still seeing the classic combos, and they apply damage well. I think they're probably above CSM even for the average player.
Range change, maybe. Garbo Cult Terminator bricks are still terrifying. Rick Marines are still terrifying. They do well into things like Drukhari and Admech and Sisters. They have access to Great Mortal Wound Output, which is nice. That solves a lot of their issues. Yeah, I don't have a problem with this. I think they're right here. I think they're right in that sweet spot, kind of. Okay. Well, Tyranids just won a GT, so they're broken now, right? Mastercrafted tier?
I mean, Mastercrafted at least, dude.
Yeah. If your name is Matt Evans, then Tyranids are Mastercrafted. If your name is not Matt Evans, I think you're Big Mech Gubbins, baby. I really do. I got to give it to Matt. Really awesome run by him, and thought it was absolutely hilarious that in his list name, he described exactly how he was going to play his army and still won the tournament. That was absolutely awesome to watch. So shout out to Matt for that. But I think that was their first GT win in many, many months. To say that it's a difficult army to go X1 with is an understatement.
Yeah, and I had talked to him a fair amount too before the event and stuff, and after, and we talked a lot about it. Like, you see Ultramarines with anything that does remotely any damage, and you just melt. Like, the game plan is the stat check, and there's armies that just meet it, and there's enough armies at the top of the meta that can do it. That it's still very hard as a Tyranid player to do the X and 1 on average. You have to be very, very skilled with a faction to do what he did.
Yeah, absolutely fair. All right, we'll keep cruising. World Eaters. We talked about the best combat armor in the game being Blood Angels. Are World Eaters middle of the pack still? They still have Hellbrutes. They still have Demon Princes, Corn Berserkers. They didn't go up to 25 unit count as the rumors would suggest. But they are a one-dimensional army. They are an army that doesn't necessarily have great access to fly. They do have an access to move through units. They do have ways around it. On GW layouts, I like them even less. On WTC, if you knew it was heavy board WTC, sure, there's a world where you take them, but they are very straightforward. Lane, you've played into them hundreds of times. You haven't lost into them yet at tournament and or practice, except for one loss into Colin K on TTS, and we don't count those. So
We don't count those.
World
Not real
Eaters,
games.
World Leaders, where do they stand?
I think they're still just touched by a tech priest, right where they were before. They're just a one-phase army, right? There's enough things that just do better than them at a lot of different things. You still definitely can do it, but you run into just the wrong thing. It's so hard. The biggest thing is the Sangard and all the things that are like Blood Angels, right? You can't screen them, and they have consistent damage into a lot of different profiles. World Eaters have very specific data sheets that go into very specific profiles very well, not so efficiently into the others, right? That's the big problem I think that they have in a meta that's going to be seeing Catan spam and Horde because they counter each other at the same time. It's so hard as a World Eaters player to tech for it all and actually feel good about it. So I think, yeah, they're chilling and touched by a tech priest.
Above Dark Angels, above Black Templar?
I would say below, personally.
Yeah, it doesn't feel great. They're all very close. I think that's one of the other things, right? Even between tiers, there's not a huge difference here. It's the top 4, and then everybody else is just kind of hanging out in the next 2, and then we have the bottom 2 tiers. Like, man, give us some love.
Yeah, I think just like you're seeing faction specialists abandon the army, and that's just a telltale sign that the power level isn't there.
Okay, next up, the Imperial Knights' brother, angry brother, maybe drunk cousin, Chaos Knights, once again relying on stat checks, relying on those things, triple gat to spoilers, maybe sliding some demons in there, but overall not getting any significant love. But I personally, I'll just put it out there right now, I think it's better than Imperial Knights. I think Chaos Knights just have a few more tools. They have access to better allied data sheets, being the demons. They actually have a decent amount of play. Like, yes, is the double Great Unclean one with triple get to spoilers still a thing? Yes, it is still a thing. Is it great? I would say no, but there's at least a pattern there. It's an annoying pattern. John and I have talked at length about this, how much I detest the fact that light knights are a thing, and it's just like they play the game not the same way as everyone else. When they were broken, I hated them, and when they're, I would say, not even close to at the top of the meta, I still don't like them because I don't like this huge swing for a faction that I know people want to play, but I would much rather see some more data sheets included.
Yeah, they end up right above Imperial Knights, if I'm honest. The broken build was triple gat despoiler. Does triple gat despoiler even bring down a Catan in a shooting phase? Barely.
No,
Maybe.
not even close.
No, yeah, not close.
Yeah, like it can't do the things. It can't tech for enough stuff, and everything's gonna have to kill big stuff, so they're bad. Chaos Demons, is that next?
Deathwatch.
Deathwatch.
So you got it, Phil. Let's hear it.
Okay, all right.
Or is he
Ready for
bringing
this?
Deathwatch?
You never know with him, dude.
Come on, guys. Listen closely. Deathwatch has +1 to hit against Xenos. 2 of the 4 factions at the top of the meta are Xenos.
Our filthy Xeno.
So you're telling me, or yeah, like I can get reroll hits, I can take Kyria, I can get +1 to hit. Like I have benefits into Xenos. Maybe I just run Deathwatch. Now, is the Deathwatch line very straightforward? Yes. You're running Fortis bricks. You're running big Indomitor bricks. You have lots of T4, T6 bodies with the 3-up save and no invul, and you're going to run a Judicar brick with fights first with Deep Strike. Is that good? Yeah. It takes the right layout. It takes the right set of missions to go out there and be effective, because the same problem that plagues Grey Knights is a lot of the same problem that plagues Deathwatch. Your opponent can very easily screen you off objectives. So yes, you come in 9 inches away, you shoot the crap out of said thing on objective, but you don't take the objective. You don't get area denial. You don't do the thing that you need to do to score points. So it is a stat check army in the sense that it is trying to murder you, and it will. Indomitor bricks are lethal with sustained, with lethal hits, with precision. Their strats are probably some of the best strats in the game. But it is a high technical army that you have to be efficient with, and it can be difficult to run. I am very comfortable with it because I've run it at length, and I really like the faction. I don't think it's as expressed by the player count, expressed by the number of people that are actually going, X and 1, X and O at GTs. I know Steven Box just went X and O with Deathwatch at his most recent GT across the pond. So there is value. It's a lot tougher. It is not an easy army to play because at the end of the day, you're still Space Marine bodies made of tissue paper.
So touched by a tech priest it is?
I think I'm having them just above Custodes. I think they're right there.
Seems legit.
Yeah.
Seems legit.
Okay, last but not least, Chaos Demons.
Scintillating, minorly touched. Still good. Still good.
I actually thought that was a pretty impactful change for them, just because the build went up 70 something points, and that was a very lean build. It had the 4 trash pieces, the birds plus Bellicor, and it leaves them in a really awkward spot because all of a sudden you only have 3 trash pieces. So what are you going to do? Like it just forces them to commit the big birds earlier, and you get less value out of the puppeteer, right? Because you're running 1 less unit, or you're just dropping a bird entirely, and then you're kind of like losing value out of the stat check itself. I don't know. I thought it was a fairly significant change for Tzeentch demons, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Incursion is still good. I think Shadow Legion is still fine. I've seen people play it enough times with success. There is obviously value across the board there, but I don't think we're going to see big birds very much anymore. I think with the points changes, I think you're right, John. They are so lean that they aren't going to do what they usually do, but it's still good. They have a plethora of data sheets. Shadow Legion, Incursion are still solid. even Plague Legion if you're feeling froggy. But yeah, I would probably put them bottom of Touch by Tech Priests, maybe above War Leaders.
I think that's fair.
I think I have a fairly high opinion of just demons in general, like Demonic Incursion. I know Michael Mann is really high on them. He's actually coaching my brother as we speak on how to play Demonic Incursion, and recently tested and took Demonic Incursion to a GT or a tournament, and also took Tzeentch Demons, and came back saying that he liked Incursion better, and this was before the changes. So I think with that context, I think it's pretty higher on that list than in Touch by a Tech Priest at the very least.
Yeah, I think I'd put them above Death Guard for sure. With their varied ways of play, I think they have a better chance of being a problem. If you're a good player, if you get good with scintillating, if you're good with demonic, if you're good with shadow, I think they're all very, very solid lines of play. Sure, we're not going to see as many birds. I honestly don't think you should be running 3 birds, Kairos, and Bellicor anyway, personally. I think 2 birds, Kairos, Bellicor, and maybe the melee prince, and then just other trash, I think is still very solid. That's the way you should play scintillating, especially now the birds are up. But like, I think it's just still solid. Demons are very good.
Well, I think that's perfectly fair, and that just shows how tight this top of the meta is. This like top 3, like obviously these 4 kind of stand alone, but there's a few factions in here that have play into the top of the meta. And then this top 3 bracket, I think, is very tight. I think you could intermix a lot of these things in terms of going X and 1. But I think if we look at these bottom 8 factions, they are definitely in need of assistance. They definitely need some kind of flavor refresh so they can gain interest back. Because, like, GW or 40k players are fickle. We want the next new thing. And I think the consensus that John and Lane and I have is when you don't have substantial changes and you don't use the data slate for what we believe could be the most impactful effect on the meta, it puts players in a position where they're like, nothing really changed. Necrons are still dominating the meta. Great. Like, maybe I wait till 11th edition because that is right around the corner. So if that's you and you're like, I don't necessarily love the changes in the meta, you don't have to play in tournaments. You don't have to do those things. Maybe use this time to hobby. Maybe use this time to paint, or get your next army ready, or do whatever the case is, because obviously we don't know what 11th edition will bring, and we're all looking forward to it. But what I will say is, like, this top of the meta, there are a lot of really good factions that still have play. Even though they didn't see substantial changes, we are talking about one of the most balanced editions of 40k as a whole if we look at it over the scope. It's just, I think, maybe there's a little asterisk here at the end of like, man, I really wish they would have done something about those Necrons in a significant way.
Yeah, I think, maybe this is just the 40k player in me that's, played almost 300 games, if not more, in this edition. But I really wish GW just went hog wild, to be honest with you, and just did some crazy shit, because at least it would have made the game more interesting. I think like players like me are like looking for reasons to continue playing 40k towards the end of an edition, and GW didn't really give us the opportunity to latch onto that and grab that and say, I'm still excited about 40k. I want to keep playing even though it's the end of an edition. And I think it's a missed opportunity to garner some momentum going into 11th edition, right? So yeah, I think by and large, I'm a little disappointed in the changes. It's fun to be the broken army for a little bit, so I'll soak in that for a little while. It'll be a good time. But other than that, it's a little disappointing to not see like players around me get excited about their factions, and just hear folks just be kind of disappointed with how GW approached things this time around.
You're muted, Lane.
All right. Yeah, I agree. We will have to see. It's going to be, 3 months, probably. We think June is probably when they're going to be dropping 11. Hopefully some exciting previews should be on the way before too long. They usually do some like Adepticon and some other stuff, which are happening, end of this month. So we'll hopefully have some hype, some reasons to start looking forward to playing again in 11th if you are one of these people who just feel like it's not worth it. And that's totally fair. But if you are looking to play, this is kind of where we think, it's going to sit in terms of what armies you probably want to look out for that are going to be doing very well. And, if you have multiple armies to pick from, now you know what to choose, right? Just, we're never wrong with these, right? Go ahead and pick up your Necrons. I mean, that should have been obvious, but maybe pick up your Tau if you have been off of them for a little while. Go watch John's videos. Thanks again for coming on, buddy. Thank you again for liking and subscribing and tuning in. And, do not forget that victory isn't given, it is forged, and it's forged right here on Mastercrafted. We'll see y'all next time.